here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind me.
Strange.
Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
Did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena. And
Most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
Well, things are happening fast now in the Lynn Haven corruption case, as the final 2 counts against former Mayor Margo Anderson and 4 counts against developer James Finch are being sorted out. And I'll tell you, first of all, what's happened, but I want to show you. I was inside the federal courtroom again today. And what you were told by WMBB was going to happen is the exact thing that did not happen. It actually probably worked out well for, it was an emergency hearing that Judge Walker called, because last week at the evidentiary hearing, former Lynn Haven Commissioner Antonius Barnes, the prosecutor's witness, was called up by the defense, and he said that Finch never bribed me and I never sold my vote to him. That's what he's always said. There's a more than an hour-long videotaped interview between Barnes and an FBI agent before he was arrested, in which he said the whole time he didn't do it. And according to the evidentiary hearing proceedings, the FBI agent stood up and said, actually, I believe you. But they needed a witness. And WMBB told you that Judge Walker was mad at Antonius Barnes. That wasn't true. If anything, he was upset with the prosecution. But actually, it was even more than that. According to Judge Walker today, he wasn't upset with the prosecution. And so I'm going to clarify what happened and why it probably was the best case scenario for Antonius Barnes, the defendants, and the prosecution even. First, I guess before I even do that, there are lots of things I got to talk to you about very soon. The letter from a lawyer. Okay, the Lynn Haven city manager, Vicki Gaynor, she also testified a week ago. And there were 3 serious problems with her testimony, all of which could be perjury. And they're getting to the bottom of it. Tomorrow is her deadline to turn in some notes that she said that she had taken several years ago and given to the prosecutors. But see, the defense never got these notes. And they're checking to see if, A, she wrote them a long time ago, 3 or 4 years ago, or longer. B, did she give them to the prosecution? Do they have them? And why the hell the defense doesn't have them? They're supposed to have them. A lot of this centered around why the prosecution continues not to give exculpatory evidence to the defendants. This was a big deal. So Vicky Gaynor, after the evidentiary hearing last week, Chief Ramey, the police chief, took a lot of heat and is taking a lot of heat. In fact, Commissioner Judy Tinder has called for his resignation because of text messages that he sent that we talked about at the last show. So she sent a request to an outside law firm. Remember that. That's going to come back for advisement, right? Because she wants some outside lawyer to explain whether or not Chief Ramey should be disciplined. The letter was unbelievable. Not only was it stupid, it was snarky. It was a fakakta letter. Okay, so City Manager Vicky Gaynor's fakakta letter that advised against disciplining Chief Ramey, as even WMBB said, comma, for now. And there are reasons for that. We're going to have to look at the letter, the fakakta letter, on another show, okay? Because what happened today needs to be told and clarified right now, because WMBB is already lying about it. I saw Brady Calhoun over in the corner again, and his headline, which I'm going to show you, in my opinion, I have never talked to Antonius Barnes. I don't think. Have I? I don't remember ever talking to him. But this guy's his reputation is being disparaged over and over and over by the local TV news, WMBB, making accusations against him, saying crazy things about him, painting him in the worst light possible. All week last week saying he's going to have to go face to face with the judge after lying on the stand. I mean, it's been incredible what he has endured by WMBB. Well, that's not at all what happened today in front of the judge. Not at all. I mean, how WMBB can how Huey Lewis in the news, or how Tom Lewis can even go on the air tonight without being embarrassed as all get out. What they've been telling, the judge is going to be very angry at Antonius Barnes for saying one thing and then saying another, doing a 180. That's what they said too, doing a 180. You want to know what the judge said to Antonius Barnes? I'm going to show you what he said right after this. You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at, right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
Have you received a speeding ticket for which you want no points placed onto your driving record? I'm El Saulene, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
All right, let me show you. You know, you let Al help you, but let me show you. All right, I'm even going to show Al. I'm even going to show you. Watch this. This was the, look at that. That's what WMBB, look at that, WMBB News. Just keep this in your mind when I tell you what happened today. Local educators' pension is on the line. Wow. Lynn Haven corruption defendant affirms guilty plea. Both of those are absolutely false. Could you imagine the TV news taking a picture of you where you look despondent coming out of a federal courthouse and saying things that are absolutely not true? And I'll explain to you why they're not true. He's not a Lynn Haven corruption defendant. He pled guilty in an unrelated charge that he put down false information on a bank loan application. That's what he's charged for. It is, and the judge made this clear. You say, Bernie, it's not true. It's overlaps. Look, until you sit in there and see for yourself how Judge Walker interacts with the witnesses, with the prosecutors, and with the defendants, you really are in the dark unless you believe me. I'm telling you, it's true. If you don't look, I already had this. The former Lynn Haven police chief, before Chief Ramey, his name is Matt Reimer, and he retired after 38 years or something with Lynn Haven. He was mostly in the fire department, and for the last year or so, he's been in the state attorney's office as an investigator, the prosecutor's office. Well, he just retired from that. I mean, a few days ago. Keep an eye on that. I know what you're doing, Matt. So I had heard after he made some posts on my page on Facebook, I had heard that he had posted or said something that Bernie Thompson must have blocked me after I made some factual comments. And that wasn't true. What I think happened is the guy he was making factual comments about, a former police officer who made a bunch of posts, deleted his posts. And so both of our comments disappeared in that thread. So I reached out to him by Facebook, tagged him because that's how you do it now. And I explained that to him. I said, look, man, I want you to post here all you want. Talk a lot on here because you know stuff. I mean, you were there. He was the police chief when Ricky Ramey vindictively arrested that woman as a favor for former city manager Michael White. He was the chief. His name was in that thread. Hey, Matt knows about it, So I know you know about this stuff, and I want you to comment. I even offered to meet him in person, and he was very cordial. He said, "Thanks for the invite. Think about it." So I wish he would come to the hearings, and we could sit together, and I'd nudge him and say, "Matt, that's what I'm talking about." And he would say, "Shh, Judge Walker's going to yell at us if you keep talking in the gallery. You're not supposed to be." So I'd have to do it real quiet. But come sit down and watch this stuff for yourself. You'll be blown away. You won't have to rely on Brady Calhoun. Let's get to this. Remember this picture. Remember these headlines. The local educator's pension is on the line. That's not true. Lynn Haven corruption defendant affirms guilty plea. He's not a Lynn Haven corruption defendant. He was never charged with that stuff. Oh, all right. They were listed in the indictment, but the only charge against him is unrelated. And Judge Walker made that distinction very clear today. There's two separate things going on here. Don't mix them together. But there's Brady Calhoun over there mixing them together. All right, like it's some sort of an ingredient and some kind of big lie stew or something. Here's what really happened today. Federal Judge Mark Walker said that he needed to clarify last week's testimony from a former commissioner. At issue was a very, I want you to be able to see that. At issue was a very specific thing. Okay, this is what was at issue. From his testimony was that a week ago in the evidentiary hearing, Barnes said that he testified and told the judge that he felt coerced into making a false statement. That's the key, into making a false statement in exchange for a plea deal for lying on a bank loan application. That is the specific thing that Chief Judge Mark Walker today said is the reason we're here together. Tell me if you see any of this in WMBB's story, okay? The transcripts of this will be available at some point. So at some point, this is what's crazy, is at some point you're going to be able to lay out the transcripts, take WMBB's story, take what I'm telling you, and then you can decide who told you the truth. It's crazy what they're doing. All right. Barnes's plea deal for the bank loan application involved two things. Admitting that he made a false statement on a bank loan application. All right. That's what he admitted guilt to. And testifying against developer James Finch in the separate corruption case. All right. Excuse me. All right. Those are the two things in the plea deal that I didn't even see the promise to testify or take the stand, but they said it was that this was the discussion today. Despite continuing reports from WNBB that Barnes had previously confessed to taking bribes in exchange for the plea deal, that never happened. Barnes has always maintained that Finch never bribed him. Barnes pled guilty to one charge: lying on a bank loan application. He is not a public corruption defendant. That's an extremely important point, WMBB. Now, there is a document, a statement of facts that came out after he signed the plea deal, about 2 weeks after. And there is language in this statement of fact that I find I can't wait till they really get to that, because there was some language in there that he signed later that there was an expectation of influence and that sort of thing. That's the only thing I've ever seen from Antonius Barnes. Everything from his plea deal, before and after, he has been consistent. He even last week under oath, the prosecution's main witness, or was, said unequivocally, I was never bribed. I never sold my vote to James Finch or anybody else. And that's the government's main witness. And WMBB had been telling you that they ran all kinds of, they even had the best attorney, Al Salim, go on there and say, hey, Al, he changed his vote. Well, I think if Al had seen all of the evidence, he was speaking in terms of what a person who signs a plea deal, that particular thing. See, they're conflating everything. Yeah, he did this. Exactly right. Of course that's the case. But when WMBB conflates everything and says he pled guilty to something he didn't plead guilty to, it makes everybody confused. And that's the point about this. But Judge Walker wasn't confused today. He drew that bright line. He's not a public corruption defendant. He pled guilty on something else. So that was an important distinction that he made. You'll see in the transcripts when they come out. So Barnes clarified. Remember, I told you what he said last week, and his attorney wasn't there when he said it. He said that he felt coerced and threatened into making a false statement. And that's when Judge Walker said, what? But it turns out the reason that Judge Walker called an emergency meeting is because when he asked him to clarify it, he wanted to make sure that Antonius Barnes had his lawyer with him. And I had been saying it was outrageous that his lawyer had left. But at the end of this hearing today, his lawyer stood up and said, I want to point something out, Your Honor. I didn't just abandon the guy. I didn't just leave here. And I don't want to tell you what he said. It's public record, but it involves family and doctor visits and stuff like that. But it was a legitimate reason. And Judge Walker showed affinity to the lawyer. He showed respect to the lawyer. He said, I've dealt with him for a long time, and you waited here, you did your due diligence, and that's fine. And I didn't want to push Antonius Barnes last week because you weren't there. So let's do it today. So I wanted you to know that. Now so Barnes clarified today that what he should have said, he should have been more specific at the hearing last week. He explained that he felt overwhelmed to cooperate with prosecutors during the plea deal that went on for a long time because his teacher's pension was at stake. See, if Barnes had pled guilty to taking bribes, he would have lost his pension. So he agreed to testify against Finch take the stand for the prosecution. In the separate case, the bank loan application, if that's the only one they charged him with, and that would not affect his pension. So that's the deal they made. Antonius Barnes, you plead guilty that you lied on the application loan. Do you know what the penalty for that is, by the way? I think it's 30 years. For something, how many Americans do all the time? 30 years for that. So they had him, right? And he said, look, I will take the stand for you. I guess is what they said. They said, if you don't have those other, get them off of there. And so they're gone. So he's not a public corruption defendant. And he's agreed to take the stand for the prosecution. But he also agreed, remember today, that it was not, he did never agree to make a false statement. Therefore, well, actually, his pension is not on the line, as we see. But look at WMBB's headline. Look what it says. A local educator's pension is on the line. How do they do? If your whole business is that people should believe what you tell them, can you believe they just lie with they're not even embarrassed about it? I mean, that's absolutely incredible, is it not? All right, let me show you what the main three things today are. I said Barnes has been consistent from the outset. He will indeed take the witness stand for the prosecution, like he agreed to, if the case goes to trial. Last week, the judge said, assuming it even goes to trial. And he can continue to say that he never sold his vote to Finch as a bribe without losing his unrelated plea deal. And this only lasted like a half hour today, the whole thing. So all parties appeared satisfied to me. Number one, Antonius Barnes is satisfied that he keeps his plea deal for the bank loan violation in exchange for taking the witness stand for the prosecution during the separate Lynn Haven corruption case if it goes to trial. So after it was said on WMBB all week long that Antonius Barnes is in big trouble when he goes face-to-face with the judge after doing a 180, oh, you don't want to be him. He's in big trouble. That's what they were saying. Did you see those stories? But as it turns out, that wasn't the case at all because it wasn't true. It wasn't true at all. And Brady Calhoun's not even embarrassed. Tom Lewis is not even embarrassed. I would be embarrassed. I'd at least be like, oh, man, I got that wrong. Woof. Doesn't happen a lot, but damn, that's embarrassing. That's awkward. Nothing like that at all. Just double down. Look at that. Double down. Number two, prosecutors are satisfied today that Assistant U.S. Attorney Stephen Coons, who has submitted his retirement, that he wasn't accused of coercing Barnes. And the key again to all of this is into a plea deal in exchange for a false statement. That's the line. Okay. So anytime you take a plea deal, there's an element of coercion. There's an element of pressure, of being overwhelmed. Anytime you take a plea deal, you got to admit to this in exchange for that. So that's how it goes, right? They say the investigators and the prosecutors say, look, pal, you're either going to serve 40 years or you can help us out. You can play ball. You can be a witness for the government, for the prosecution. And, we'll work with you. We'll take up 35 years. That is all within the realm of being okay. Here's what's not. I didn't know what the line is. What is the line that they can't cross? The line they can't cross is this. And this is exactly what Walker was looking at, Judge Walker. The line you can't cross is you have to agree freely and voluntarily to the deal. You have to admit that you did it, that you're telling the truth. And that And the prosecutors did not tell you to make a false statement for the deal. That's the line they can't cross. They can, you got to testify, you got to testify, you got to testify, but they can't say that you have to make a false statement for the deal. And that's what this was about. But remember, if you just joined us, remember, Antonius Barnes what he admitted guilt to was separate. Lying on a bank loan application. Judge Walker said this. Don't look at me. Judge Walker says separate. That's that. That's that. So number 3, defendants were satisfied that Barnes can continue giving consistent testimony, like he's always done, that Finch never bribed him without fear of losing his plea deal. So I think what WMBB has been doing with Barnes is actual malice, and that is the legal standard for defamation against a public figure. I think they have damaged his reputation so bad by lying about him right here. Local educators' pensions on the line. That's not what they said today in court. As a matter of fact, he can continue to testify the way he did last week and keep his plea deal, which means his pension is not on the line. And look at the bottom, Lynn Haven corruption defendant. No, he's not. I mean, that's, to me, that's actual malice. I mean, reporter Brady Calhoun was in the courtroom. He's a professional reporter, right? He's got a job, even. He's got an obligation to tell the story accurately and with context. But instead, they knowingly disparage his reputation by falsely reporting that he had pled guilty for selling his votes to Finch as a bribe. That is a lie. And Antonius Barnes, if you're watching, or if your friends or family are watching, that's actual malice. That meets the standard, I believe. Barnes's attorney explained, as I said, that he had left last week's evidentiary hearing before his client took the stand for a legitimate reason. Judge Barnes made it clear that that was indeed the case and showed respect and affinity, even, I thought, for Barnes's attorney. Furthermore, Judge Barnes said that today's emergency hearing would have been unnecessary had Barnes's attorney been present during the testimony last week. And the judge wanted Barnes to have proper representation while clarifying his testimony regarding the plea deal. His sentencing date was also moved to the end of the month. So that also happened. I don't know if WMB, should I look? I don't know if I want to. Should I? Do you want me to check, see if WMBB has done a story? Oh my gosh. Let's see. All right, let's see here. If they did, we'll watch it together. My keyboard's been acting up. All right, thank goodness. All right, Bay County organizations prepare to open warming shelters. It doesn't. They just have the one I showed you 7 hours ago. Maybe at 10 o'clock tonight they'll have a fresh one. I don't know. But that is what happened today. So tomorrow's a big day in this. Tomorrow, 2 things happen, and they're so big, and the news hasn't reported this. Tell me if you've heard this from WMBB. I mean it now. Number 1, that is when the defendants, that's their deadline to turn in their list of bad actors, of investigators that had targeted them or ignored evidence or misled the grand jury, prosecutors who have over and over and over and over withheld past the judge's deadline and everything else, exculpatory evidence, on and on and on. So they are going to turn in their list of, the judge told them, give it to me, a list of bad actors and bad acts. And the judge is going to consider issuing sanctions against them. That happens tomorrow. They're submitting that. And I don't think WMBB has even said the words bad actor. Have you seen them report that? That's like the biggest thing. That's the result of the whole thing last week. Secondly, city manager Vicky Gaynor, tomorrow's her deadline. Have I even told this story to you yet? When she was on the witness stand Monday last week, she reached down and she pulled up, I don't have one next to me. She reached up and pulled up a, what are they called? Somebody tell me the name. A steno pad. And the defense attorney said, "What is that?" And she said, those are the notes that I wrote to myself about all the corruption between Finch and Margot a few years ago. I wrote these a few years ago, she said. And the defense attorney said, "How come I don't have those?" She said, "I thought you did." He said, "Why would you think that?" And she said, "Because I gave it to the prosecutors a few years ago." So that's the reason they're there. The prosecutor's not turning over evidence. So the judge says, "Did she give you these notes that she had that appear to be originals? Did she give you those notes?" It's a whole steno pad. And the prosecution stood up and said, "She gave us a binder, a notepad." And so what ultimately happened is the judge said, "You have until tomorrow to get an exact copy of what you're holding and an exact copy of what you say you turned in a few years ago and get it to the defense." There were some people there who said, I was telling you what they said, that they saw her writing in that binder in another office room, another meeting room, before she went up there. Could have been a different binder. I'm not saying she did it, but I am telling you, tomorrow she has to give that binder that she lifted up, and it better match the one that she gave them a few years ago, or that's big trouble. That happens tomorrow too. And several other things are happening. So I will continue to tell you what I see. And it's a hot time in Florida right now. I mean, in the courtroom it is. In the courtroom, it's a real hot time in Florida. Oh, man. I got more for you in just a minute. It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirRepair.com. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777. All right, so I was going to talk a little bit about the Fakakta letter. All right, excuse me. I was sneaking an orange between the break there, and now they're coming out. So anyway, I was going to tell you about the Fakakta letter. That is the letter she got back from the outside law firm, Vicky Gaynor, about recommending not to fire Chief Ramey. But what I'm going to do, I've got a little bit of research to do before I analyze that just a little bit with you, because the claims in it are unbelievable. Lawyers, I know you don't believe this. I didn't used to either. Lawyers are way too smart to be this dumb. So you say, "Bernie, I know some dumb lawyers." I'm telling you, if you don't know what the LSAT is, it's a logic test. It's extensive. Before you can get into law school, you have to do really well on this logic test, and it's no joke. It's actually not like the SAT, which I got lucky on, quite frankly. When I got accepted into USC in Los Angeles, a top 30 university. But I got real lucky on the SAT. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how the hell I passed the math. I guess fate. But the LSAT is a serious test of logic. I used to think I knew logic until I messed around with that thing. It's like, oh, I know that. No, lawyers are smart. So when they write something as stupid as what was given to Vicky Gaynor, I know that they're being dishonest. That's called a red flag. And I'm going to show you where their lines don't connect. And and more about that, but we're going to save that. Right now, I want to thank the Unknown Patriot for your support. I sure appreciate it. And as always, if you want to support me, this is one way you can do it. You can become a patron. It's like a tip jar. That's the easiest way to explain it. It's easy. It's anonymous, and you can quit at any time. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson, as little as $5 a month. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been a long day, and it's been fast. Things are going fast. Lots of things are happening, and the shadow knows. The shadow knows, and so do others, about some of the things that might be coming. And I want to make sure I share them with you just as soon as I can and as soon as I have them ready. Thank you so much for being with me tonight.